Hi guys, Asmo here. The new league for Path of Exile Ultimatum has been revealed, and this is what we're gonna talk about today. First, I'm gonna talk about the league mechanic, and then about all of the other changes that are gonna come in 3.14, which there is quite a lot of them. The new skills look amazing, the new features, the new improvements to quality of life of many of the league mechanics look amazing, so I'm really hyped for this one. I'm gonna make separate video for the POE 2, so in this video I'm pretty much not gonna talk at all about POE 2, but that's gonna come in the video after this. The league mechanic is pretty similar to Ritual, but it's a different take on it. They're saying like, oh, it's not similar at all, but like it's basically Ritual 2.0. Ritual kind of allowed them to like, I'm pretty sure they're reusing some code in this one, but this is I think much better and much more advanced, much more polished, much more developed league than Ritual, because of basically like how much stuff and how much depth there is to the league mechanic. Basically, you encounter these trials in a map, and then you have a choice of like completing the trial and getting the reward or bailing out, and then it continues and repeats up to 10 times in the highest tier maps. So I'm gonna basically go through this video. I'm gonna pause so that I don't skip over anything. Basically, when you do the trial, you have to pick a modifier, right? Like for example, all monsters get faster the longer they remain alive, or like monsters gain speed, crit, life, any other modifiers. And these modifiers stack on top of each other. The thing about modifiers to know is that they are kind of exponential, because whenever you have a modifier on a map that's basically doing, let's say you have a crit, right? You have a crit modifier, enemies have like higher chance to crit, and critical strike multiplier, they're gonna do more damage naturally. If you have, instead of that, like monsters deal 100% of their physical damage as extra fire, that's basically like double damage, right, for the physical damage monsters. But if you have both of them together, that's like a multiplier. And these multipliers add up really, really quickly, because the mods that are added on maps, especially like on maps or in Delve, they are very, very high multipliers. They are like 100% more, or like 40% more, like very, very high multipliers. So as long as you can be like within the range of like fighting certain monsters, you're not gonna feel them, and if they're like 1 or 2 modifiers, you're not gonna feel them too much. Like stuff is gonna become harder, but you're not gonna feel it too much. But once there's like 3, 4, 5 modifiers that stack on top of each other, that becomes much, much harder. It becomes exponentially harder, kind of like Delirium. Like if you notice, when you do like 20% Delirium maps, they are not as hard. When you do 40% Delirium, they're a little bit more hard, but the jump from like 80 to 100 is the biggest jump in difficulty. And the same thing with this. I think the biggest jump in difficulty is from the 9th trial to the 10th trial, right? And the same thing, because the modifiers are just gonna add on top of each other. And consider also them being multiplied by map mods, by sextant mods, by the awakener level of these mods on the map. It's gonna be really, really difficult at the hardest, hardest difficulties, at the highest amounts of trials. However, it should be pretty rewarding. So you are a little bit incentivized to make a tankier character so that you can survive these and actually make some currency. So I would suggest, if you are considering like what build to play, and if you are considering between, let's say you're considering playing a summoner versus playing, I don't know, like an ice trap or something, right? I would consider maybe don't start with an ice trap build if you're interested in doing these rituals. If you're gonna be skipping them, then don't worry about it. But if you're interested in doing these rituals, pick a little bit of a tankier character. Maybe play a chieftain or something, like Fire BV chieftain if that doesn't get nerfed, or like some totems, something a little bit tankier than you would normally do, even in softcore, because I think the most like the highest tiers of rituals are gonna be extremely hard to do in softcore with very, very squishy builds, because they're gonna throw monsters at you. You have to stay in a closed area. You can get out of this area, by the way. The area that they're putting around you, you can leave it for up to 5 seconds, but then you have to come back in before the timer expires. So you can a little bit cheese that by going in and out. So for example, you can leave a smoke mine, run away, and then just before the time you can put the smoke mine back in and run away again and reset the timer. I think there will be like a way of cheesing that. So if I would be playing something like a Toxic Rain, for example, I think Toxic Rain can get in and out so so quickly because it has so much movement speed that you can cheese that mechanic a little bit and kite the monsters in a bigger area than it seems you can normally, right, with that circle. But it's still gonna be restraining you, and you're still gonna have to stay in that circle with these monsters. And I'm sure there are gonna be, for example, like modifiers. Maybe you cannot leave the circle for like only up to 2 seconds, right? Maybe there will be like mods that change that as well. So we'll see what we get there, but the rewards seem pretty nice actually from what I've seen. There are going to be also these like single like ones that you can find, right? You can find the ultimatum maps, kind of, right? What are they called? Like the itemized ultimatum, and they are gonna have different things that they want you to sacrifice. So for example, there is one that it wants you to bring, they're called inscribed ultimatum. Yes. So there is, for example, one that doubles sacrificed currency and requires sacrifice 1 exalted orb, right? There might be one that requires sacrifice, for example, a doctor card, and it doubles the divination cards. So there are probably different categories, right? Like currency, divination cards, catalysts, like maybe scarabs, maybe maps, right? Maybe you will get a copy of a map. Like there are gonna be different ones, like different mechanics that they're going to interact with, and then they're going to pick from those things like requires a sacrifice. So it's going to be like requires sacrifice a T16 map maybe, or requires an exalted orb, or requires a mirror. Maybe something like that will exist, but the one that requires a mirror will probably be about as rare as finding one. So it should be extremely rare, but someone probably will find one. There's probably like extremely low weighting on that, but it probably exists. So that's really cool, because these ones you can trade, you can sell, but also you can buy them and do them if you have like a tankier character. So I really like how this works. And then there's also going to be a boss fight at the end. There is a hint for that. Basically, there's gonna be a boss fight in the end where you're gonna be able to fight against this like chaos dude, like with the chaos face. So that's really cool. We'll see what kind of drops he has. But overall, the league looks very solid. It looks like I'm very happy there are no splinters to fight. I hope there are no splinters to fight this like last boss. I hope it's just something you like either have to find or like do certain amount of these itemized trials, and that would be really cool. So overall, the league mechanic, I would say it's like a solid 8 out of 10 on paper of how it seems like. It's like very solid league in terms of like a smaller league that they're making. Very happy seeing that, because it's, I think, quite exciting, especially for hardcore. So I'm definitely gonna consider like trying to also do a solo self-found hardcore playthrough, especially with all the changes that I'm gonna talk about in a moment, because I think solo self-found and hardcore just got way more interesting with all of these changes. So let's talk about all of the other changes that they're making, right? All of the other changes that they're making have to do with other league mechanics. So we've got, for example, I think they're talking about it. I'm looking at the video and they're mentioning them in reward system improvement section. Yes. So first thing that they changed is Orbs of Binding. I think Orbs of Binding are now gonna drop like as early as low levels, like whenever you do orbs, whenever you have like also Orbs of Alchemy, upgrades a normal item to a rare item up to 4 linked sockets. So I think they will drop from like level 25 zones, as far as I can guess, right? I hope so. At least I hope they will drop from like level 25 zones, which is the zone that you can also find 4 links. So that would make perfect sense, right? And they should be about as rare as like an alchemy orb, because it upgrades a normal item to rare item, but with up to 4 linked sockets. So that should sometimes help with the leveling, and it will give you a little bit more 4 linked sockets. And this orb is basically useless in any other situation. So hopefully this is where we will see it in like early leveling after like level 25. Let's say that would be the ideal time, I guess, for this to appear. And then we've got the Chaos Orb. The new Veiled Chaos Orb will allow you to basically chaos an item, but one of the mods is guaranteed to be a veiled mod, which you can unveil. So if you want to unveil a specific mod, you can get an item, like let's say you want to unveil Mana Coston Rings. You can technically get an item and Chaos Orb it, give it to June to unveil. If you don't get the right mod that you want, you just unveil whatever, and then you Chaos Orbit again, and then you Chaos Orbit again, and again, and again, and again, until you get the mod that you want. So you can much quicker deal with the unveiling. However, this will cost you, and these orbs are gonna be something that you can farm through Betrayal. So it makes sense because you might be able to find them somewhere else, but they are going to most commonly appear in Betrayal, and they're gonna be, I think, Ashling or some other syndicate member is going to have them in a specific safe house. So we'll figure that out, and we'll see where they give that, and we'll be able to farm that. So that's something that I'll probably set up for, because, for example, right now, because of another change, some safe houses are going to be actually less you're going to be less incentivized to run like certain members that we always run in the Betrayal, and you're going to be able to do a little bit more variety there. And I think that's going to be one of the additions, one of the changes that I might go for, like farming these veiled orbs, because people are going to want to buy them, so there's going to be some demand for them. Then we've got also a bunch new bases added to the Atlas. So if you didn't know, as you're doing maps in certain regions of the Atlas, you can drop specific bases, like for example crystal belts, or gripped gloves, or for example two-toned boots, or opal rings, right? There are different bases that you can drop in certain areas of Atlas, and they're adding more of them. So there is like an amulet that gives you faster energy shield recharge. There is a ring that gives you increased chaos damage, which is really, really cool. So there are new bases, and that's definitely a really nice thing to do, that you can farm from the Atlas. Another change they're introducing is the item drops. The items are gonna drop, you're gonna have a little bit better items drop from the end of the act bosses. This is such a, like for me, this is a change that is meaningless, but I'm still extremely happy about it, because it just makes the game so much better. It just makes the game make much more sense, that killing massive, huge end of the act boss gives you some actual loot better than killing, you know, a one rare possessed by a ghost, you know? So that makes a lot of sense, and I'm happy that they're introducing that change. So that's really, really good. Really, really good. Another change they're making is they're making a lot of the league-specific uniques that you can find in just anywhere in that area, like whether it's Nemesis, whether it's Delve, whether it's Betrayal. You're gonna be able to find these uniques in maps, in regular content, or even in the story. The Brutus Lead Sprinkler, the Badge of the Brotherhood. There are many different uniques, and I think they said like it's about 100 or something like this. A lot of uniques that were only accessible in certain leagues, and they're not like boss uniques. Boss uniques still remain accessible only from the bosses, but something like the Headhunter only being accessible and only being able to drop in an area with the Nemesis, it's now going to be able to drop everywhere as long as the zone is high enough level. And I think it's gonna be quite high. It's gonna be like probably from maps onward. It's probably not gonna drop in the story, maybe like at least level 60 or something, because they hinted at level 40 like not being enough anymore to get the Headhunter, because people usually like use ancient orbs and chances on like level 40 leather belts to get a Headhunter, but now I think it's gonna be increased from what they said. So it's gonna be really, really cool, because we're gonna see people get these items a little bit more often, or rather more spread out. You don't have to like farm very specific content in order to get these super valuable uniques, which makes it a little bit more exciting when you find one, because it's less expected. And this is not something that, these items are not something that I guess you should like be able to very easily deterministically farm. They should be kind of like chase uniques, and they're making them a little bit more of a chase unique, even though you'd think that them being able to drop from more areas would make them more likely, but I think they are actually also going to adjust the drop rates, which is going to make them about the same likelihood of finding them, but there's just more situations and more times where you can find them, and it's going to be more interesting, because you're going to be doing some content that you don't expect to drop this from, and you are going to drop it from that, and it's going to be much more exciting. So that's really cool. And also for me in particular, as far as I know, for example, Soul Rest is a Delve only item. I'm planning on starting the next league with it, so I think this is going to be actually more common and people are going to be able to drop it from outside of the delve, which means there's going to be more of them, which means it's going to be easier to do this. So that's really, really cool. That's one of the changes that I'm most excited for, and that's really, really awesome. Another thing they're changing is they're adding some recipes to the vendor. I think that, I don't know why they showed like the certain items with like the lures and fishing wand and gloves and like just random currencies. Maybe combination of those items will give you something, but we'll see. So there are new vendor recipes that we're gonna be able to find out this league. That's also something cool because vendor recipes are very, very useful, and that seems like just something better for SSF as well. Another thing that they're introducing, or rather reintroducing, are reliquary keys. So reliquary keys can drop from anywhere in the game pretty much, but they are extremely rare. So you're going to be most likely acquiring them if you want to buy them from someone, and they're gonna give you foiled uniques. The foiled uniques have like a, I don't know if they have any other stats. I don't know if they have some legacy stats or something. I'm not sure actually, but they will have like collector's value because they will have like a different look, right? So it's like a collector's thing where you can get uniques that have this cool look, but they are very, very rare. So that's another thing that they are adding. If you find something like that, I would recommend probably selling it and then not trying to roll for the unique, because you're not very likely to get something good. Then next changes that are coming in 3.14 have to do with older leagues. So older leagues are getting a lot of updates, especially to the rewards. For example, the at Series Splendor chest is giving you +1 to level of all Val skill gems. Now the question is it going to give you +1? Let's say you have a Val Fireball, right? Does it give you +1 to the Fireball and Val Fireball aspect of it, or only to the Val Fireball aspect of that skill gem? That's something that remains to be seen, because we haven't seen this mod before in the game. So we'll see if this will actually apply to the regular Fireball and Val Fireball if you have a Val Fireball gem, or only to the Val Fireball aspect of it. Regardless, this is pretty cool because it's like a global modifier, so it will apply to all of the Val skill gems that you're gonna be using. So that's really, really cool. It also, Atsiri also gets like Atsiri's rule judgment stuff, which I have no idea what it does because we don't know these stats. The Queen's Demand can trigger level 20 Flames of Judgment or Storm of Judgment. We have no idea what that is yet, so this remains to be seen in game or whenever we have some information about it. Next change has to do with the Ascendancy. In the Labyrinth, a lot of people complain about how unreasonably difficult it is to get the right helmet enchantment, for example, for the build that you're playing. And some builds, like for example Scourge Arrow, the helmet enchantment is pretty much mandatory if you want to play it at a high level, and this will allow you to much more reliably get some helmet enchant. Not only you will be offered now 3 helmet enchants, which you can pick whichever one you want and apply this to your helmet, but if they are not something you'd like, you also can see which enchants you can get for your boots and for your gloves. So you can get 1 for gloves, 1 for boots, or 1 for the helmet out of the 3 that you can see. And this is a massive change. This will make it so that running lab to get the enchantments will actually be something viable to do in SSF, because you are like 3 times more likely to get what you want, and also you can much more reliably upgrade boots and gloves. This will some people might think, oh, so everybody's now gonna get whatever they want, so lab running is gonna be worse. No, lab running is actually gonna be really, really good, because you're gonna be able to run simultaneously good boots bases, good glove bases, and good helmet bases, because believe it or not, there are actually some insane glove enchants that you can get. For example, the one that throws your weapon in an arc and converts some of it to fire, for like a 2-hander Tectonic Slam or 2-hander Consecrated Path build, something like that. These gloves, the enchant by themselves can like clear T16 mobs in maps. It's an insane enchant. So there are some really, really cool things that you can get from that, and lab running is gonna be actually more interesting because you're gonna have more agency over what you're picking, and knowledge about the game is actually gonna pay off. Also, they're changing how you get the Emperor's Might, but they are nerfing it as well. The Emperor's Might is getting nerfed, and changed, and it no longer grants like 6% increased strength or stats in general. So basically it's getting removed from the game pretty much. Now this doesn't really matter. It's just like a rare drop jewel that is insignificant because it only gives 5% increased strength, unless this is some role that can go actually higher on this. But I think it looks like they are maybe changing it. We'll see. Maybe they still keep the role being higher, but we'll see. However, this makes it so that that one guy that was abusing like loading times in lab to get all of these jewels and get monopoly on it is not gonna be the only person having it, and like he's not gonna have monopoly over that. So I like that change because that was quite silly. The next change has to do with they're also adding like some couple of other uniques. They're adding like a shield to that. This shield, let's look at it. It has spell damage, no energy shield, 64 life, 41 max mana, immune to ignite and shock if maximum life and mana are within 500, and 4 to 7 added fire damage per 100 of maximum life or maximum mana, whichever is lower. Okay, so it wants you to stack both life and mana at the same time. Okay, so it wants you to have like 5k of both and play like MOM, where you have like 50% MOM, so half of your damage is taken from mana, half of your damage is taken from life. This gives you some life and mana, and then you're gonna get a bunch of added fire damage per 100 maximum life and mana. So if you have 5k of both, that's times 50, right? Times 50, so what is 3 times 50? So that's like 150 to whatever, like 150 to like 400 almost damage. That's quite a lot of added fire damage. That's a lot of added flood damage, and this counts for spells and attacks, so that can be used in some very spicy builds. Like for ignite builds, for example, adding a lot of flood damage is very useful. So maybe something like that. Maybe you could do like ignite, maybe even like archmage, where you use both the lightning and the fire damage to ignite. That would be really, really cool. What else do we have here? We have changes to Perandus. You're gonna get more Perandus coins from the actual Perandus chest. We get changes to essences. Essences are getting buffed in general, which is really, really cool because they're like very useless to pick up except for some specific ones, and except for like if you want to sell them in bulk. So that's really, really cool. And now blessings are going to actually buff the breach stones. So you're going to be able to use the run like regular breach stones, get some blessings, and buff like upgrade the breach stones that you have into pure breach stones, all the way up to pure breach stones, which is really, really cool. It's amazing for SSF. It doesn't force you into running betrayal, right? And they're making it so that basically if you want certain league mechanic, you run that league mechanic, because previously if you wanted really, really good breachstone, what do? You run betrayal, right? Now you actually keep running breach if you want the better breachstone. So that is something that makes more sense, and it's more sustainable, and I like that idea. They're also buffing abyss jewels, which is kind of insane. Like abyss jewels are really, really good right now. They're one of the ways of scaling damage for characters that don't have other ways of scaling characters that is very, very reliable. So with some of these changes that I'm seeing here, what were the other changes? With some of these changes and with these jewels, I'm feeling like Raider and Deadeye are actually getting buffed, because classes like Raider, for example, they have like a lot of attack speed, but not enough base damage to do enough single targets, so they rely on jewels. If jewels are getting buffed, if you can get more flat damage or more damage overall by using more jewels, that's gonna be a massive buff. So that is quite crazy. There are gonna be more jewels, I think, or better jewels dropping from the actual Abyss mechanic, and they're also adding Abyss Scarabs, so that's really, really good. The Winged Abyss Scarabs adds 3 additional Abysses. Abysses are really, really good source of extra monsters for running 100% Delirium maps, for example. I run like elevated 3 extra Abysses mods like sextants on my 100% Delirious maps, so running it with also the Winged Abyss Scarab, that would be 6 abysses per map. Then there could be also like a natural abyss that spawns, and you can have you can run like maps with 6 abysses, and you can run them in the regions that also have the abyss nodes on the Atlas skill tree. So you can like scale that insanely and get like crazy amount of jewels or Stygian vices of the highest level and things like that, like 86 Stygian vices or whatever. You can get crazy amount of stuff with that. So that's really, really cool. I like that these scarabs are gonna be in the game, and they seem like decent scarab in general. We got also a new unique, Tech Rod's Gaze Murderer's Eye Jewel, which gives you increased main hand critical strike chance per Murderer's Eye Jewel affecting you, and also offhand crit multiplier per Murderer's Eye Jewel affecting you. So this can give you, if you're stacking Murderer's Eye Jewels and you're doing like a shield build, like Spectral Shield Throw or something like that, the offhand is only what counts. So but that basically is like 50% crit multi for that build. So that is a pretty strong jewel in general. And there are some other jewels. This one is not that useful. As far as I can tell, like projectiles have chance to chain when colliding with terrain per searching eye jewel, but that is only up to maximum of 20%. I don't know if you can have, I guess you can have multiple of those. I don't know if they stack. If they stack, then you can do 100% and then projectiles will bounce forever. I don't know, man. Maybe it only bounces once anyway. It doesn't seem that good. The next change that is coming is the beasts. The splitting is getting nerfed. People who were previously splitting bases like 6 White Socket, Val Regalias and other armors and different bases that had like really good mod on them that is very hard to roll are now not going to be able to dupe the bases. So duping the bases is basically gone. Now if you dupe the base, it's gonna be marked as split and you cannot split it again, and you cannot like, as far as I can tell, you cannot like chaos it and or like change it or whatever and it's like split it again, because so that means you cannot like split bases that have you know, really good sockets, like 6 linked 6 white socket bases and stuff like that. So that is really cool. I like that change because duping the bases was quite unhealthy for the game with what it incentivized, which was like multi-boxing, farming beasts with bots and stuff like that. So I'm really glad they made that change. The next change that they made, which is quite massive, is Temple. Temple is getting buffed. Temple is being able to now be itemized. You can basically make your temple and then you can click a button and now you have an item with that temple that you can sell. You no longer have to go to TFT to buy Corruption Chamber, and if you want, you can buy fucking search on trade and buy 20 Corruption Chamber temples, and you just do it much faster. So we are going to see much more GG double corrupted items, and double corrupted items will be also cheaper this league. So that's really interesting. Like it's actually gonna be, instead of like 80x, maybe it's gonna be like 50x, you know, you're gonna be able to, or maybe like 40x or maybe 20x. You're gonna find a lot more double corrupted chests, especially the ones that are like niche, that are not very popular in terms of the like +2 to level of certain gems. The ones that are least popular are gonna be quite a lot cheaper because there's gonna be a bunch of them now, because people are gonna be double corrupting way more items with such a great access to the corruption chamber. So that is really nice. And temples are buffed overall. They're gonna have more monsters in them. They're gonna drop more these like items that have to do with like whatever you're like, basically can build your temple and target items a little bit better right now, which is really cool. So temple is getting buffed. Delve, big changes to Delve. We don't know how big. We don't know how big, like what the numbers are going to actually be, but they're making a quite a reasonable change, which is adjusting the profitability of deep delving versus regular delving. So as you are going into delve, as you are getting your recipes, for example, for like linked sockets and colors and stuff like that, which is very useful to have, as you are going for your like owl kill for a challenge or something to like the depth 250 or something, and before, like, you know, depth, you try to go to like depth 1000, like, which is considered, you know, still kind of casual. You're gonna be able to find much more like fossils, better rewards, and pretty sure that like the most expensive fossils are gonna show up a little bit earlier. But then as you go deeper, they're not gonna so drastically increase in frequency. So the people who are deep delving are gonna be getting a little bit less of them. However, this is still going to be pretty much like the most profitable thing, because there's still gonna be demand for them. If there is less of them, then that means I think basically it's gonna be more spread across people. I would expect like similar amount of similar amount of fossils to be found by the general player base, but they're gonna be more spread out. It's not gonna be all in the super deep delve. It's gonna be a little bit more of them in the more like shallow levels, in the lower levels, but in the deeper you go, of course, still the more you'll find, and it's still gonna be profitable to do. But I like that they're adjusting the wage gap a little bit in here. They're adjusting the difference between, you know, the most juiced delvers versus people who just delve a little bit more casually. They're also buffing Katarina. I'm still probably not gonna be doing Katarina, but because it resets the board. But there is now a strategy for doing Katarina and having a lot of people in different safe houses, and they're gonna give better rewards. So for example, if you do Katarina, you are going to get, for example, more benches, more rewards. You're gonna get winged scarabs. You're gonna get much better rewards for doing Katarina when you go into the safe houses after fighting her. And then she also has another item that she's gonna drop, which is Cane of Kulemak. This looks pretty nuts. As far as I can tell, looking at these unveiled mods, it's quite crazy. Like, because this is a Katarina weapon, right? You can, I think, unveil like the +2 to supported gems. And if the veiled mods have increased modifier magnitudes, I don't know how high it goes, but let's say it goes, I mean, we can see it goes above 50%. If it goes above 100%, it would be nuts if it goes to 100%. But if it doesn't go to 100%, it's still nuts, because that would give you basically +3 to level of supported gems. You can get like crazy damage over time multiplier, like 80% or something damage over time multiplier, and then some other mod, like, I don't know, like some spell damage or something. If you can find one like that, I mean unveil one like that, it's gonna be insane. This is definitely an item that has big potential of being really good for certain spells, like for fire dot builds, for chaos dot builds, for lightning builds. Like, there are going to be definitely certain mods that you can unveil on it that are gonna make it really crazy for spells, and it's gonna be a very nice stuff, and it looks cool as well. So that's really nice that this is being added. And yeah, I think, like, yeah, because this is a Katarina item, I think you can get the +2. If it goes to 100% increased modifier magnitude, I think that would be like +4 to supported gems, which would be absolutely crazy. Unveiled items, unveiling is in general going to be slightly faster, and then when you unveil, you're getting a really good mod. You're getting like a T1 mod, but on the bench you're unlocking like a T2 mod, which is what we normally have right now. So they're basically making it so that unveiling items is less annoying, less bad. It's a little bit more rewarding. Basically, they're adding some kind of a reward to unveiling, because you can get like a T1 mod, you know, 128% increased fizz damage, chance to poison on hit. Like, that's a lot of increased fizz damage that you can unveil. So something like that is definitely helpful for the mechanic and makes it a little bit less tedious and less annoying. The Orb of the Veiled Chaos we talked about. They're buffing also blighted maps. So blighted maps now can be alked, and the chests are gonna take a little bit of, like, I don't think they're gonna be completely like, you know, if you have like increased 100% increased quantity of items, they're not gonna have quite 100 from what they said. They're gonna have some portion of it, so maybe like half of or whatever, but it's gonna be worth rolling them now. And also, if you corrupt your blighted maps, they can drop these like oil that will allow you to anoint corrupted amulets now, which is really cool, because that means talismans are no longer hot garbage. They're now actually something that can be useful, and because of that, they are unnerving talismans, because that would be they would be just very strong right now. Then we've got also Blight Scarabs. Blight Scarabs are really cool. We've got 4 of them as always, like with the winged one. Blight encounters add a lot of monsters, so this might be one of the best Scarabs to run in 100% Delirious maps as well. It's really cool that we're getting new Scarabs to actually play with, so that we don't just use the same 4 over and over. We also got Accelerating Catalyst and Unstable Catalyst added to the game, which adds the quality for speed modifiers and for crit modifiers. The crit one is just insane. It's a massive power creep. The crit one for an amulet and for a ring as well, like they're insane power creep actually. You're gonna get so much crit multi potentially from an amulet, it's ridiculous. Harvest nerfs, I made a whole video about this, so I'm not gonna really talk about it, but you can check out the video I have about the harvest nerfs. I'm not a fan of the harvest nerfs, but I'm perfectly fine with them doing like basically harvest is you're gonna get less crafts. I'm happy with like getting less crafts, right? But the way they did it and made it like less useful is I'm not a fan of that. And in general, they're changing a little bit. They're standardizing how often you're gonna see different league mechanics in maps, and it's like 8% for each league mechanic to spawn. So that is gonna be like standardized, and you're gonna see certain mechanics less often, certain more often, but you're gonna see them a fairly equal amount of time. And then there are the new skill gems. So the new skill gems are quite exciting. I really like the theme of them, and I like the supports especially. The first one is the Petrified Blood. So this is applies a buff that protects the lower half of your life, preventing some of the immediate life loss when damaged. So when you're taking damage from hits, 40% of the damage below your like half is prevented, and then 100% of the life loss prevented this way is lost over 4 seconds, which means 40% of the damage is gonna be like delayed and spread over the next 4 seconds, which makes regen and leech more powerful, right? And it compensates for having less life. It is still like you're gonna still take more damage overall. But you can take advantage of other things that being on low life can help you with, right? And then also skills gain a base life cost equal to 40% of base mana cost while not on low life. So while you're not on low life, your skills are gonna be more expensive, which means you can spend them to get back to low life, and then your leech and regen can keep you there. So this is going to be for builds that are gonna try to push regen and that are gonna try to push a leech. The good thing about this is that you're not on full life, which means your leech keeps rolling. As long as you're not on full life, if you still have more life to leech, it's gonna keep rolling as if you were a Slayer, because Slayer has this thing where if you're on full life, the leech doesn't stop. With this specific spell, the Petrified Blood, you are going to be able to just keep leeching because you're not on full life, and it's gonna just keep rolling as long as you are less than 100% life. The builds that I can like foresee being played with this are something like, for example, Inquisitor, which has life regen and energy shield regen at the same time, which will allow you to stay on low life like this, just with the Petrified Blood skill, and then have a bunch of energy shield and be like a hybrid, because the 40% of life loss below it's still applying to life loss. It doesn't apply to degen though, so this is something that you really need good chaos res for, because otherwise chaos degen will kill you instantly. Like chaos degen will kill you so fast because you have way less life, and the staggering of the damage, the little bit of the damage like mitigation or prevention or whatever, is not applying to degen, so that will not help you. It's also not applying to ignite, so you need to be like immune to poison and ignite. So definitely playing Inquisitor. Inquisitor is something that seems like fits very well into that. So that's a very interesting spell that you can use now to stay on low life, and low life is being changed so that it applies after you are less than 50% life. I think it's a little bit more intuitive, I guess. But now you are on low life when you are under 50% life. Then we've got Corrupting Fever, which is also just a spell. Draw out your own blood to power the buff, so it costs like 78 life at level 1. Letting you inflict the Corrupting Blood debuff on enemies you hit, dealing physical damage over time for a shorter secondary duration. The buff's duration will be refreshed if you spend enough life before it expires. So this is like a buff that you have to keep casting, and it lasts, I don't know, it seems here like it lasts 11 seconds, we see 12 seconds. Okay, so, oh, there's actually duration in here. So base duration is 6 seconds, but you can link it with like longer duration and stuff like that. So it deals base physical damage per second 7.8, and it stacks up to 10 times, they said. So that is 78 base physical damage per second on level 1, which is quite a lot. Base duration is 6 seconds, that's of the buff. Base secondary duration is of the debuff, I think, which is 1 second. As far as I can tell, skill effect duration will affect this. Skill effect duration should affect this because this is actually a duration that is on the skill. So if you have 100% increased skill effect duration, you can get this to 2 seconds. This is kind of similar to Blight, right? This is like a physical dot, but it's very similar to Blight. You have to hit and keep max stacks, and that will keep applying the debuff. And the buff duration is refreshed after you spend a total of 28 life. Can you use other things? The buff duration will be refreshed if you spend enough life before it expires. Okay, so if you're using other skills that also use life, the buff will refresh, so you can kind of have it automated and it will just stay like automating itself as you're spending life. Triggering this skill still requires paying its cost. Yes, so to trigger it, you need to pay the cost, but then to keep it up, you need to only be spending life in any other way. The cool thing about this is that this is an insane buff for Crimson Dance, right? You have a Crimson Dance that will allow you to stack bleeds more times than one. There are going to be insane bleed buffs, like insane bleed builds in this league. Like I can guarantee you there are gonna be super ridiculously insane bleed builds because this is just crazy. This is just like doubling the damage of bleed builds currently. Like they would have to nerf all the nodes for bleed like crazy and the ascendancies. But for example, like a gladiator, like a deadeye, like especially deadeye, I'm really excited for using for playing deadeye with something like splitting steel or something, like one of the steel skills, like one of the steel skills with corrupting fever, with bleed, with rapture. It's gonna do absolutely insane amount of damage. It might be like this skill that I'm gonna be playing after my starter because it's just absolutely insane. Like the way you scale this, and it seems absolutely nuts. It seems absolutely crazy to me. Like I can't imagine this is not broken. Like this seems so broken because this basically, yeah, this adds so much damage. It's really ridiculous. And it's just like a separate spell. Like it doesn't really affect your links. And you can use also use a two-hander and a chest to have it. And yeah, it's insane. It's insane. Exsanguinate is like Imagine Arc, but that has much less chains. Or imagine like what's this other one? The Lance, the Crackling Lance or whatever. But it's a physical spell. It's a physical spell that deals regular like physical damage and then physical damage over time as well. And it also has a base duration and modifiers to spell damage apply to the skill damage over time, and fires tendrils at up to 7 targets. I don't know if it's like very directional. I would love to see like if it applies them to targets around you. They didn't show it properly in the trailer, so we can't really see. But if it applies the damage like all around you, then that would be something I would really like to play. It seems like it can have amazing clear. Like it seems like it can have really good clear, and it's a very interesting way of scaling this. These like physical bleed spells is something that I wanted to play for the longest time. I wanted to do like bleed EK, but it didn't seem like really feasible. These seem like actually it's doable, and it's gonna be really interesting playstyle because there are definitely some like ascendancies and passive skill points that would definitely synergize with it very well. Then we've got the Reap. Reap is really cool. It looks like, yeah, it looks like you're reaping the mobs. It deals physical damage. It's a spell. Some people thought it's an attack. It's actually a spell as well, and it deals physical damage, AoE, and it also has duration tag because it will also apply physical damage over time, and spell damage applies to that. It's really nice. Costs 20% more life per blood charge, and then deals 10% more damage per blood charge. Gain blood charge if this skill hits enemies and none of them die. Okay, so for single target. So, okay, lose a blood charge when an enemy dies. Okay, so for single target, this actually has like a multiplier, more multiplier. How many charges can you gain? That's my question. Like, how many charges can you actually gain? Because if it's like 10 charges, is it 5 charges? Like, how much? It seems like a nice multiplier for single target, like inherent single target multiplier. Really, really cool. I think Elementalist could be really good for this, because Elementalist already has bigger AoE while you're not hitting a unique monster, but while you're hitting a unique monster, it has more damage multiplier, and then it synergizes also with this more damage multiplier, so you get 2 extra more damage multipliers when you're hitting unique monsters. Seems like Elementalist Reap might be the way to go, and it sounds absolutely crazy. And you can make it Shock, for example, right? You can make it Shock, you can make it also Ignite, you can make it Chill, like Reap as an Elementalist. I feel like that's gonna be one of the better builds with the new skills, like Reap Elementalist, and then Gladiator or Deadeye with the Corrupting Blood skill. Those are 2 builds that I'm definitely looking forward to playing. This sounds really, really awesome. The next thing that they did is split Blood Magic into 2 skills. One is Arrogance, which lets your supported skills reserve life instead of mana, and that also makes them a little bit, it gives also like some aura effect. I think that's a quality mod or something, but it gives you some extra aura effect. And then Lifetap, which makes supported skills cost life instead of mana. That's basically like blood magic for regular skills, but also after spending a total of, you know, certain amount of life, depending on the item, on the gem level, you are gonna get a buff that makes you deal 20% more damage while you have that life tap. So that's really, really nice, because it allows you to make any skill into one of those life consuming skills, which allows you to take advantage of these other spells and these other gems that synergize with spending life for your skills. But at the same time, you're not completely losing like damage. You're sacrificing some damage, but you're not losing everything, because it's still like 20% more multiplier at level 1. So this sounds like really, really cool. It sounds like it will open more possibilities for different builds that actually spend life instead of mana. And people were suggesting like that GGG adds this to the game recently, and it's really, really cool that they were actually already working on that. And then also we got Cruelty Support, which makes supported skills deal 20% more damage with hits, and have 10% increased effect of cruelty granted by supported skills, and hits from supported skills grant cruelty. However, I have no freaking idea what the cruelty does. It basically, I think, makes you like deal more ailment damage while you also have more hit damage. So this is like for skills that want to deal ailment damage as well as hit damage, which actually seems like it would buff a lot of interesting like bleed builds and poison builds. So that's really, really nice. And then we've got Bloodthirst Support. Supported attacks deal added physical damage with weapons equal to 2% of maximum life while on low life, and supported skills deal 10% more damage. So we've got added phys damage equal to max life while on low life. So it counts your whole life. So it gives you like a basically incentive to, well, it actually is really, really good for bleed, because it adds the flat damage. Yeah, so it gives you incentive to be on low life for attacks. And I feel like the new keystone that they added, there's like a new shield that adds a new keystone. I feel like it might have something to do with like deal more damage when you're on low life with attacks or something like that. So we're gonna have some super glass cannon low life attack builds this league probably that are gonna just completely break the damage in game. So that seems really, really crazy. That's a lot of stuff that we just talked about, and it's all of that is gonna come in 3.14. That's not even like POE 2 changes or anything. All of that is coming in 3.14. Crazy amount of changes. I'm the most excited for the fact that I can get Soul Rest easier, because it can drop anywhere now outside of Delve. So that's really, really cool, and might be able to snipe one at the beginning of the league. But also so many quality of life changes, so many new awesome skills. I'm definitely gonna try them. The builds that I would be hyped for, like I would recommend trying, probably would be like Elementalist Reap, and also like some kind of a skill with the Corrupting Blood spell for like a Deadeye Crimson Dance build with Rapture or something like that. That sounds really amazing. So that's it. Let me know your thoughts about the upcoming league in the comments below. Check out my stream at twitch.tv/AsmodeusStream, and also check out my Nexus, where you can find the new deals for the Path of Exile MTX for the different armor sets. And thank you so much for watching. See you next time.